Welcome into today's edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. New York prosecutors presented the jury with their closing argument in the case against former President Trump yesterday, saying the case is about a conspiracy and a cover-up, and maintained that they have presented powerful evidence to convict. We'll give you the latest details on that as the jury will receive their instructions from the judge today, and 12 New Yorkers will decide the fate of this case. Is Joe Biden finally seeing the writing on the wall? It appears that the Biden-Harris campaign is trying different tactics and are going to start being nimble and creative in their new guerrilla-style campaign tactics. These are adjectives used by some of their operatives, not mine, in a surprise news conference yesterday featuring Hollywood actor Robert DeNiro. They say this is just the beginning. Also, the DNC has found a way to get around Ohio's ballot issue. You may recall that Ohio was not going to place Joe Biden on their ballot in November because the Democrat National Convention was past their deadline. Well, the Democrat National Committee announced yesterday it will nominate Joe Biden through a virtual roll call vote ahead of the August convention to ensure that he does appear on the Ohio ballot this November. More details have emerged on the $320 million Biden administration floating pier designed to deliver aid to Gaza, as authorities say the pier is breaking apart and starting to sink. So far, it doesn't appear any food and aid has been delivered to Palestinians in Gaza. Also, a new study from Cornell University suggests that electric vehicles are supercharging an impending environmental crisis and makes the argument there's not enough capacity to build the batteries necessary to meet the production demands of the Biden administration.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's start in New York as prosecutors yesterday presented the jury with their closing arguments in the case against Donald Trump, saying that the case is about a conspiracy and a cover-up, and maintained that they have presented powerful evidence to convict. Trump, of course, charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. He's pled not guilty on all accounts. Prosecutors need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump falsified records to conceal this $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels, a pornographic dancer, performer, whatever, in the lead up to the 2016 election. The payment, of course, was to silence her, according to the prosecutors, in an alleged affair that she had with Trump in 2006. Again, the former president has maintained his innocence. New York prosecutor Joshua Steinglass presented the closing arguments for Alvin Bragg. Steinglass presented his closing arguments for more than 5 hours yesterday. Steinglass said that Trump's intent to defraud could not be any clearer, arguing that it would have been far easier for him to pay Stormy Daniels directly. Instead, the prosecutor said, he concocted an elaborate scheme, and everything he and his cohorts did was cloaked in lies. He went on to say the name of the game was concealment, and all roads lead inescapably to the man who benefited the most, the defendant, former President Donald Trump. Steinglass defended their use of Michael Cohen as a witness, telling the jury, I'm not asking you to feel bad for Michael Cohen. He made his bed. But you can hardly blame him for making money from one thing he has left, which is his knowledge of the inner workings of the Trump organization, he said. We didn't choose Michael Cohen to be our witness. We didn't pick him up at the witness store, Steinglass said. The defendant chose Michael Cohen to be his fixer because he was willing to lie and cheat on the defendant's behalf. Cohen had testified last week that he was reimbursed $420,000 for the $130,000 he paid to Daniels. Cohen said that the former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg suggested he gross up the payments and that Trump knew the details of the reimbursement. The prosecution presented Cohen with 11 checks totaling $420,000. Cohen confirmed that they were all received and deposited. The checks had a description of retainer, which Cohen said was false. Meanwhile, Steinglass argued that the prosecution presented to the jury was smoking guns, referring to handwritten notes by former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisenberg and ex-controller Jeffrey McConey. The two documents show calculations related to the payments Cohen received in 2017. They included that $130,000 in addition to, as well as an unrelated payment, a bonus, and money to cover taxes, according to Cohen's testimony. Steinglass said they are the smoking guns, completely blow out of the water the defense's claims that the payments were for legal work. Steinglass went on to accuse Trump of lies in bank accounts, shell companies, false denials. He said the name of the game was concealment. And he mentioned that many, many times, that Trump had tried to conceal the truth. Steinglass said Trump was actually trying to prevent catch and kill scheme from going public, saying he had every reason to conceal election fraud. Halfway through Steinglass's presentation, now this is classic Trump. Trump got up and left the courtroom, posting on Truth Social his opinion of the lengthy closing arguments. He just simply posted, boring. Wow. Steinglass went on to highlight a phone call between Cohen and Trump that took place supposedly on October 8, 2016, the day after the Access Hollywood tape was made public. Steinglass claimed there's just no way Cohen wouldn't tell Mr. Trump about Daniels in that phone call, pointing to more calls, many around the same time of the key developments in the Daniels negotiation. Steinglass asked, is this timing all a coincidence? Wrapping up his 5-hour presentation, Steinglass repeated a infamous Trump line, saying Donald Trump can't shoot someone on Fifth Avenue at rush hour and get away with it. You remember Trump said that at one point, that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and walk away. The comment prompted an objection from Trump's lawyers, which was sustained. The judge will instruct the jury around 10 a.m. later this morning, and it will be in the hands of 12 New Yorkers. Meanwhile, outside of the courtroom, Robert DeNiro yesterday talking about, I'm not sure what Robert DeNiro was talking about yesterday. He rambled and stuttered, and in the background, all you could hear was a car horn going off. Someone had prompted an alarm to go off in a car. You could barely hear what DeNiro was saying. But before we get to Robert DeNiro, while he was outside yesterday yelling and screaming, another Hollywood star speaks up on why he is supporting Donald Trump. Dennis Quaid argued during a recent television interview that rather than politics, it was the weaponization of the justice system and his policy record that ultimately convinced him that he needs to support Donald Trump. Quaid has been in Hollywood hits like Traffic, Dragonheart. He portrays President Ronald Reagan in the 2024 biopic Reagan, which will premiere in August of this year. The actor told host Piers Morgan of Piers Morgan Uncensored yesterday, he explained to him why he is, in fact, supporting Donald Trump.
What do you think of Trump?
I think I'm going to vote for him.
Really?
Yeah, in the next election. Yes, I am.
Are you ready for the blowback?
Well, yeah.
Which inevitably comes with Trump?
Well, you know, I think in this election, everybody's got to, I think they're going to take a side or whatever, but it just seems to me, it just makes sense. I was ready not to vote for Trump until what I saw is more than politics. I see a weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
And a challenge to our Constitution, us as Americans, that I don't think we're going to have. And, you know, Trump is the most investigated person probably in the history of the world. And they haven't been able to really get him.
At the end there, Quaid said, people might call him an a-hole, but he's my a-hole. And he makes a lot of sense, doesn't he? And we all should be concerned about the fact that this trial shows how our justice system has been weaponized. It's a political weapon used by the Democrats. When asked by Morgan whether one has to like Trump to vote for him, Mr. Quaid replied that he cringed at some of Trump's past rhetoric. He said, but as president, the only thing I liked about Trump was everything he did. What he did with Korea, with Rocket Baby, the way he defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. You know, people don't even remember it happened so fast, Quaid said. How he stood up for us overseas, he said, the way he responded to China. He stands up to people, and that's what makes him a leader, rather than what I kind of compare it to, what was going on in Jimmy Carter's administration, where we're trying to be everybody's friend and pal. I'll tell you one true thing about him, is that I really feel that he's working for the American people. That's what he's all about, and I do believe that to be true and sincere, Quaid said. As far as opinion on Biden, Quaid said, I don't feel he's at the helm. I don't feel he's there. I feel that he says things to get votes, not that he truly believes them, and now I'm really going to get some blowback, but that's the way I feel. He went on to express his hope that Americans can come together across the political divide after the election. He said it doesn't have to be the end of the world, whoever is elected. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. I was talking to a good friend the other day, and he mentioned that he has started taking the weight loss injection drug that was initially made to treat type 2 diabetes. He said he's losing weight, but the day after he takes the injection, he is so sick he can't leave the house. That got me thinking. Most of us go on a weight loss journey so that we can feel better and get healthy. Folks, losing weight should not make you sick. I can tell you firsthand, 4 years ago when I started PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, I was never hungry or agitated. I never felt sick. In fact, I felt great the very first week. The PhD side effects are better sleep, more energy, smaller clothes, and a general sense of well-being. Getting healthy should not make you sick, and it shouldn't make you dependent on a drug either. Simply put, PhD is freedom. You will not be dependent on a drug because there are no drugs. You'll learn to eat for your body, and you won't gain the weight back. They have a lifetime maintenance program, and PhD teaches you to trust yourself and your knowledge. Call them today, 864-252-4925. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's 864-252-4925. More details have emerged on the $320 million Biden administration floating pier. You remember the one that was designed to deliver aid to Gaza. As authorities say, the pier is breaking apart and starting to sink. I told you a bit about this yesterday as we were learning details that parts of the floating pier, a couple of the watercraft attached to it, had come loose amid some very strong weather conditions. Some of the parts of this had washed ashore in Gaza. Other pieces had washed ashore in parts of Israel. The U.S. was forced to suspend delivery of aid, food, and various other articles to this temporary floating pier on the coast of Gaza yesterday because rough weather and rough water had continued as the structure began to continue to break apart. 4 vessels that had stabilized the pier broke off due to choppy waters earlier in the week. Officials said the pier was still operational, but that it's no longer the case as of yesterday late afternoon, as officials confirmed to Fox News Digital. The U.S. did not offer a timeline for how long the repairs would take, but saying that it was not operational at this time. A UN official said that repairs could take at least a week, but could possibly take much longer. Joe Biden's administration spent nearly $320 million constructing this massive floating dock. It was operational for barely a week before the damage occurred. Of the 4 stabilizing vessels that detached earlier this week, 2 of the boats floated northward. Those are the ones who landed near the Ashdod, Israel area, while the 2 others remained anchored at the beach near the pier. While the pier had been used to transfer roughly 569 metric tons of aid into Gaza, none of that aid has been delivered to Palestinians as of last week, according to Biden's own Pentagon officials. Now think about that. We spent $320 million to build this floating pier. It's falling apart already. And so far, our own Pentagon says that none of the aid has even made it to those that it was intended to help. Of course, the pier's failure comes as Israel conducted a what is being called a sizable operation in Rafah with tanks rolling into the heart of the city for the first time since the war began. We heard of details of the attack over the weekend that claimed the lives of some innocent women and children. We've learned more details of that now with the Israeli government saying that they're not completely convinced that the bombs that they had used to strategic targets in the area actually caused the fires. They're still investigating. The tanks near the Al-Wada Mosque, which is a central Rafah landmark, the Israeli Defense Forces said its operations in the city continue in that Rafah area, but did not comment on whether its forces advanced to the city center. Witnesses in Rafah told Reuters that the Israeli military appeared to be using remote-operated armored vehicles as there was no immediate sign of actual personnel in or around them. The IDF has not commented on those reports, and I'm certain they probably will not. They're not going to tell their war secrets. Israeli tanks have been seen around the edges of Rafah since the IDF took control of the border crossing with Egypt 3 weeks ago, but they say that they had not entered the city. Meanwhile, the White House yesterday provided the most complete definition yet of what it considers to be a, quote, major ground operation in Rafah that could trigger a change in United States policy towards Israel, and said Israel's actions there have not reached that level yet. Here's what White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby told in a news briefing yesterday. He said, quote, "We've not seen them smash into Rafah. We've not seen them go in with the large units, large numbers of troops in columns and formations in some sort of coordinated maneuver against multiple targets on the ground. That is a major ground operation, and we have not seen that." Of course, everyone has come under fire because of this attack over the weekend that caused these people to lose their lives. Israel's 3-week-old Rafah offensive stirred new outrage as France and other Israeli allies condemned this airstrike. It happened on Sunday. Gaza officials said that it had killed 45 people when a blaze ignited in a tent camp in the Western District. Now, keep in mind that these tent camps are temporary shelter for close to 1 million people who have been pushed from the northern end of Gaza to the southern end of Gaza as there's no place else to go. And Israel has been very careful to instruct these people to go to this area because this is a safe area. President Biden has faced increased pressure from all sides. Lawmakers in his own Democrat Party have urged Biden to restrict aid to Israel, to curb a growing civilian toll in Gaza. Others have blasted the White House for a recent pause in some arms to Israel. So yes, Joe Biden is getting it from both sides. He needs to continue our strong, decisive support of Israel. The Biden administration has repeatedly warned Israel against launching a large-scale military offensive in Rafah. According to their own definition today, John Kirby, they haven't reached that. They have not reached that yet. Asked about reports that Israeli forces have moved into central Rafah, Kirby said yesterday, "It's my understanding, and I believe the Israelis have spoken to this, that they are moving along something called the Philadelphia Corridor, which is on the outskirts of the town, not in the town proper." He went on to say that we've not seen a major ground operation, and these tanks are moving along a corridor that they have told us previously that they will use outside of the town. Of course, last week, the World Court ordered Israel to immediately halt its military assault on Rafah in a landmark emergency ruling in South Africa's case, accusing Israel of genocide. Israel said it had targeted 2 senior Hamas operatives in a compound and had not intended to cause civilian casualties. And again, it's not proven that the bomb actually did cause those casualties. Remember, the terrorist organizations are the ones who are giving us these reports. And of course, they want the world to turn against Benjamin Netanyahu. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself if you're looking for a new appliance to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. The Democrat National Committee announced yesterday that it will nominate President Joe Biden through a virtual roll call vote ahead of the August convention to ensure that he appears on the Ohio ballot this November. So let me give you a quick reminder here, review. Ohio's ballot deadline is August the 7th, 2 weeks before the DNC planned to hold its official presidential nomination at the in-person convention in Chicago. Frank LaRose, the Republican Secretary of State, warned last week that Joe Biden would not be on the state's ballot unless the state lawmakers moved the ballot access deadline to after the Democrat convention. Days later, the DNC announced that it would expedite the nominating process, though no date has yet been announced for this virtual roll call. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if if Biden doesn't have them cancel the convention altogether, because I'm not quite sure that Joe Biden wants a convention, because then it would allow them to replace him with another candidate. This may be exactly what Joe Biden wants. He longs for the good old days of COVID when they didn't have a convention, when they did a virtual convention. Remember that in 2020? Now, DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison, from South Carolina, by the way, said in a statement, Joe Biden will be on the ballot in Ohio and all 50 states, and Ohio Republicans agree. But when the time has come for action, they have failed to act every time. So Democrats will land this plane on our own. Through a virtual roll call, we'll ensure that Republicans can't chip away at our democracy through incompetence or partisan tricks, and that Ohioans can exercise their right to vote for the presidential candidate of their choice. Hey, look, don't blame the GOP. The law is the law. This is Ohio's law. The Democrat Party had to have known this, didn't they? Or was this just an oversight? Oops. Did Jamie Harrison maybe not check all the dates? Because every state has certain deadlines that you have to meet in order to be on the ballot. Maybe they just overlooked this. Maybe the DNC should have planned a little better. This virtual nomination, again, it's going to look very similar to what the party used for their 2020 convention, when most of the proceedings were impacted by the COVID pandemic. The DNC said the Chicago convention will go on as planned, serving as a convening event for the party. We'll see. Again, it won't surprise me if Joe Biden doesn't convince them just to cancel the whole convention. Go ahead and nominate him virtually, so he's ensured that he's going to have the nomination, so that they can't have a floor fight and potentially choose someone else in an open convention. There are typically a few states each election year whose ballot certification deadlines do not align with the party officials' nominating convention. This is not the first time this has happened. The misalignments are usually quietly resolved, though, either by the state legislature or the Secretary of State. That's why Jamie Harrison is pointing his finger at Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State of Ohio, who happens to be a Republican. Frank LaRose, there's no indication that he's singling out Joe Biden. He's just enforcing the law of his state. His legislature had the opportunity to change this, but they didn't. They chose not to. Ohio's Republican governor, Mike DeWine, called a special session to pass a law that would ensure that Biden does appear on the ballot. But GOP lawmakers would only agree to such a change if it included a campaign finance bill that would stop foreign donations to state and local ballot issue campaigns. This is what they wanted. They wanted to stop the Chinese money from coming in and influencing their elections. The party's supermajority shot down a proposal by Democrats to pass a clean measure that would have moved the ballot deadline past the convention, but would not have agreed to the changes of foreign money coming in. So you see, the Democrats didn't want to agree to that. They don't, because the Democrats want the Chinese money coming in. The Democrats want the Russian money coming in. The Democrats want any foreign money to come in that can potentially sway people to support their causes. Politico says the state of Washington and Alabama have also have early certification deadlines that fall before the DNC, but Democrats in the former resolved the issue by offering a provisional certification of Biden's nomination. Lawmakers in Alabama passed legislation earlier this spring that deferred the state certification deadline until after the DNC. And again, this is not unusual. It happens. So is the Biden campaign in full freak-out mode? Is that what's going on here? Politico thinks so. The White House is not commenting. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy asked point blank in the White House press briefing yesterday, is Joe Biden in full-blown freak-out mode over his polling numbers ahead of the November election? Doocy cited this Politico report titled Dems in Full-Blown Freak-Out Over Biden, and it details Democrats' what they call pensive sense of fear of the potential outcome of the 2024 election due to the president's low polling numbers. So in yesterday's briefing, Doocy said, are you guys here at the White House in full-blown freak-out mode? Here's the exchange.
Ukraine, are you guys here at the White House in full-blown freak-out mode?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's a Politico
Peter?
story. It sounds like Democrats outside, the quote is, Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freak-out.
So, again, I'm going to be mindful. I'm not going to comment on 2024 election. I will say this. The president has never forgotten where he came from, who he is. He understands what the American people are going through as they're sitting around the kitchen table. You hear the president talk about his time growing up, where he watched his family having to sit around the kitchen table, making incredibly difficult decisions. And the president has always said he's going to fight for communities that have been forgotten. And you see that in the policies, economic policies that he's put forward. He's going to continue to fight for the middle class. He's going to continue to fight in every way that he can. You heard me at the beginning talk about junk fees, incredibly important. And he's going to continue to fight and to make sure, that corporation greed doesn't continue to take hold. That is something that he's been very clear about. While Republicans are doing the opposite. They put out a policy where they want to give a big tax break to the wealthiest among us, billionaires and corporations. That's not what the president wants to do.
Look, you would have to be a little bit anxious right now if you're a Democrat operative, if you're part of this Biden campaign team, and you see your man, your front runner, soon to be party nominee, and this whole virtual convention appears to sort of close the door on any challenge to Biden, you'd have to be anxious, wouldn't you? A New York Times Siena College poll shows Biden's lead among black and Hispanic voters, which is a Democrat-leaning demographic. I mean, they've always counted on blacks and Hispanics. It's narrowed between the two candidates by record numbers. And across some of the swing states that are important. Biden is leading Trump 70% to 18% among black voters. You say, well, that's still a good bit. Well, he's dropped 5 percentage points. In 2020, he led by 75% in blacks. He led by 33 points with Hispanics in 2020. So these numbers, where it shows that blacks and Hispanics and demographics, people who are not supposed to be voting for Donald Trump, they are. And that has them in full panic mode. By the way, Peter Doocy wasn't finished with that question, though. He did a follow-up question and asked why Joe Biden paid Haley Biden a late-night visit over the weekend, and if the president has read a copy of a soon-to-be-published book that gives details on his grandchild, Hunter Biden, fathered with a stripper.
On another topic, why did President Biden have a private meeting with a witness who plans to testify in court against his son?
Can you say more?
Hallie Biden is a key government witness who allegedly disposed of a gun that Hunter is accused of buying illegally. President Biden was at her house this week.
I think the American people should also be told the full breadth of this, not just a part of this question here. As you all know, the president actually spoke to this yesterday during his memorial, I think impactful, powerful Memorial Day address, where he talked about the passing, the anniversary, the 9th anniversary of the passing of his son. And he visited her as that anniversary is approaching. He visited her days before the anniversary of the passing of his son. And she is family. She was married, obviously, to his late son. And I think that is something also to mention as you're asking your question to me.
So they did not talk about her testimony?
This was not about that. This was about literally the 9th anniversary of the passing of his son. That is upcoming in days, Peter.
We learned today there's going to be a book coming out this summer by London Roberts. According to the press release, the book is about protecting the long unacknowledged grandchild of the sitting president of the United States. Do you know if President Biden has met that grandchild yet?
I don't have anything to share. Go ahead, Mary.
Of course she doesn't have anything to share. She's not going to touch that one at all. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On the text line, Katrina. This is a long one, Katrina, but thank you for your note. She says, "Hi, Joey. Hope you and Peg had a pleasant holiday. I have been mulling over a vice presidential pick. I think Nikki's off-the-cuff comment during her speech last week was premeditated." Now, of course, Katrina is referencing Nikki Haley saying in a Q&A session at the Hudson Institute that she would, in fact, be voting for Donald Trump. Katrina says the question asked that allowed her to answer came off very scripted, and I don't believe, as Mike Gallagher does, that she's putting up her personal goals, setting them aside for the benefit of the country. Goodness no. Nikki does only what would benefit herself. She's trying to slink back into President Trump's circle, obviously hoping for some cabinet job or the vice presidential nomination. She loves having her name in the news cycle. Under usual circumstances, Tim Scott would be the perfect VP pick, but the fact that he would bring uniparty money means he is beholden to them as well. I worry he would be swayed like Kevin McCarthy. What do you think of Ben Carson? He is a smart, fine gentleman, calm and religious, devoted to America First initiative with no ties to Washington. He's supportive of President Trump, says they are like two peas in a pod when it comes to policy. He has the demeanor and inspiring life story similar to Tim Scott, but is from outside the Beltway. I think he would be terrific. Katrina. P.S. Ron and I caught your interview with Cuba Gooding Jr. We really enjoyed it. Great job. Well, thank you, Katrina. Appreciate that. Katrina is referencing an interview I did on our Saturday show, Word on the Street, with Cuba Gooding Jr., who is starring in a great faith-based film that's going to be coming out later this summer. If you missed if you missed Saturday's show, text me, email me, and I'll send you a link to that. It was a great interview. Cuba Gooding Jr. is one of my favorite actors. Faye says, Joey, there have been many legal immigrants outside the court in New York, and they see what is happening because they witness this in their communist countries, and they don't want America to be communist. Schumer needs to take a long walk off a short pier. The numbers who came out to hear Trump in the Bronx spoke volumes to me. I'm praying I'm right. Jeremiah 20:11 is perfect. Thank you, Faye. Appreciate that. Susan says, I just heard that Alvin Bragg's underlying charge against Trump was that he tried to influence the 2016 election by suppressing negative stories about him. How about Biden's attempt to influence the 2020 election by having the media suppress a story about Hunter's laptop until early voting had already begun? A lot of people said they wouldn't have voted for Biden if they'd already known about it. Susan, you make a very valid point, but they just don't care. The Democrats have, there's two different systems of justice. They have theirs, and they have the ones, the one that we have to abide by. And that's why we've spent, over a month now listening to this nonsense in a New York City court. Texter says, hey, Joey, this is Lance. Loving your show in the mornings, but especially love how you close it out. Keep spreading that message, my friend, and have a blessed day. Thank you, Lance. I'm happy to hear that you're listening. I appreciate that. Hope you're doing well as too. Texter, Joey, even Trump's endorsement doesn't hold sway with me. He has made a series of bad endorsements, including his endorsement of William Timmons. He's endorsed a number of people. This is in reference to my question to you the other day. Do endorsements mean anything to you? Some of you have been very loud and clear. No, they do not. Texter, this is in relationship to Nikki Haley, says she could be janitor in the Trump White House. I'm not quite sure that's what she has in mind. Texter, I just heard that Biden announced that he will have a news conference after the jury comes back with the verdict. What? If he's not convicted, why would Biden say anything? My first thought was the Dems already know the verdict. What do you think? Diane. Thank you, Diane. I hope they don't know the verdict. I hope that they don't have control over 12 New York jurors. But we'll see. And the fact that Joe Biden is already announcing that he's going to have a news conference after this verdict is announced is crazy. It is totally out of line. There's no reason the President of the United States would have anything to say about this verdict. Wonder if he'll have the same type of news conference to comment on the verdict after his son's trial that starts next week. You think we're going to hear from Joe Biden about Hunter Biden's trial after we get the results from that? I don't think so. Our text of encouragement today, Joel sends this one, says, give whatever you're doing and whoever you are with the gift of your attention. You know, that's very true. Appreciate your comments. Your comments are welcome as well on the text line. You can email me to joey@joeyhudson.com. You know how the Biden administration is just determined that they're going to force us to buy an electric vehicle. A new study suggests that electric vehicles are supercharging an impending environmental crisis. Besides lithium and cobalt for the batteries driving electric vehicles, another valuable material is needed to make all the cars that need to hit the road in order to fulfill Joe Biden's lofty EV transition goals. This newly published study by Cornell and University of Michigan professors suggests that there might not be enough to go around. What is this? As per this new study titled Copper Mining and Vehicle Electrification by Cornell professor Lawrence Catless and University of Michigan Earth and Environmental Sciences professor Adam Simon, copper cannot be mined quickly enough to make the wires and other components needed to fulfill the current goals toward renewable energy. In a statement, Simon argues that much more copper is going to be needed for all the wiring that goes into these newfangled electric cars that are the center of Joe Biden's environmental policy, as well as the new wires that will deliver the electricity from the grid to actually charge them. You ever thought about that? He says a normal Honda Accord needs about 40 pounds of copper. The same battery electric Honda Accord needs about 200 pounds of copper. Onshore wind turbines require about 10 tons of copper, and in offshore wind turbines, that amount can more than double, Simon said. The amount of copper needed is essentially impossible for mining companies to produce. In the study, University of Michigan professor and the Catholics looked back at over 120 years of global data from copper mining companies and calculated the needs of American electric infrastructure as well as the new EVs that would be hitting the road. In their findings, they found that the demand that renewable energy demands outpaces what copper mines can currently produce. According to Simon, much of the problem lies in the bureaucracy that takes place in between when a new copper mineral deposit is discovered and a permit to mine and extract copper is actually issued, which can take almost 20 years. Now, that's another thing that the Democrats love. And that's enough time for electric vehicle technology to evolve or worse, disappear, he said, which I'm thinking that it's not going to evolve, it's going to disappear. Their study finds that in order to meet the needs of EV adoption on a global scale, up to 6 new copper mines need to be operational over the next few decades, with up to 40% of their output reserved for just EV-related materials. As per Simon and Catholics' data, the world's copper mines will need to produce 115% more copper than has been mined in all of human history up until 2018 in order to meet the demand. As a fan and as an adopter of renewable energy and EV, Simon says he's disappointed about this realization. He said, I've got solar panels, batteries, and an electric vehicle. I'm fully on board with the energy transition. However, it needs to be done in a way that is achievable. His suggestion falls in like with the automakers like Volkswagen, Honda, and even Lamborghini and Mercedes-Benz, who are focused on producing gas hybrid vehicles while in the midst of an EV sales downturn. And we're seeing this all across the board. We're seeing some of these automobile manufacturers saying it's just not possible, not going to happen. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and we're going to win in the June primaries, and if we're going to win in November especially, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.